Hi, and welcome to the Ascension Playground. My name is Ursie, and I'm here today with Robbie and our new friend, Bill. And today we're going to learn about Bill and his incredible experiences with what's called an NDE, a near-death experience. Oh, and by the way, did I tell you he's had 5 of them? But before I get started there and doing introductions, I wanted you to know that the playground is really a chance to bring friends who are having these kind of experiences or learning things and sharing it with others in a safe and in a happy place. So a little bit about Bill. He's from Texas, but before he's from Texas, born and raised, he is a dear friend, best friends with Nancy Jean with Nancy Jean's Garden. So we have Nancy Jean to thank for sending Bill to Jimmy, and Jimmy for sending Bill to Robbie and I. Bill's got a background, too many degrees to mention, in business management plus. He's worked in the corporate environment, including high tech and at least 3 airlines. And my goodness, so he's had quite the career and quite the experiences with near death. Today, our focus will be on his particular experience on what's called a Trinity Table, where he walked with Christ and he learned more about himself and Jesus. So before I do that, though, there's an animal oracle spirit card that wants to join us. So with Bill's help and Robbie's help, let me see if we can pull an animal that wants to come through. Okay, so here's the deck, gentlemen. I'm going to shuffle the deck, and Robbie, tell me when to stop. Who wants to come join us today? Which animal wants to join us? Which animal?
Okay.
Okay. And then Bill, tell me how many cuts of the deck you'd like to have.
3, since we're talking about the Trinity Table.
Oh, good idea. Okay, there's 3 cuts. Choose a stack.
The one on the left. Yeah, the one in your left finger, I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and then top or bottom?
The top.
Okay, so this is the animal that's come to join Robbie, Bill, and Ursie. Oh, it's a cute little yellow canary bird. Canary spirit, sing your own song. And Robert, it says number 12, that 12 being the magic number. Sing your own song. Gosh, Bill, do you see he's sitting on a flute? And he's got, or a piccolo, I don't know which, and he's got this nice.
It looks like a flute. It looks like a flute.
Yeah, with a little royal crown.
Golden flute.
So canary, whether it's the canary in the coal mine or canary sitting on a flute, is joining us.
Right.
All right. So without further ado, Bill, what happened on the Trinity Table? Tell us how you got to that place and what year was it? Do you remember?
It was about 2002, somewhere in there, 2002, 2003. I don't remember exactly, but it was in that time frame. And how I got to that is that I had health challenges and I was looking for solutions for it. And I understood that frequencies were able to heal people and do things. And there was a device called the SCIO. And so when I started out, it was called the QXCI. So I was learning that it was pretty complicated to learn, and there were you'd have to go inside different programs inside the program to get things to work. You had to be able to interpret them, and you had to be able to click on the right buttons. And basically what it would do was would find the deficiency or the problem in the body by the frequency, and then it would energize or kill the pathogen that was in there with the frequency that needed to do that. And so I was doing that, and I was told to go to this house that was in Richardson, Texas, just north of Dallas, and that there was a man there that was very interested. So I was working with him, and he was going, oh my gosh," and he kept saying, "People come over here, and this house is full of all sorts of woo-woo people." And I was very new to the woo-woo stuff. I didn't quite get it. I just thought these people are strange. And then I didn't know that I was strange. But anyway, innocence is bliss. But what happened was, while I was using this, one gentleman said, "If you wouldn't mind, if you could do me and see what you could find, I will exchange that in return to my gratitude to you to go on my Trinity table." And I said, "What is that?" And so he said, "Well, we'll show you later." And I said, "Oh, okay." And didn't really know what this was all about, but I didn't want to say no. So I went ahead and did the session for him. And then they walked in, and all of them were just staring at me, which I learned later was very unusual. And I know that my head was on. I knew that nothing was all different from me than I thought. But anyway, they were just all kind of wondering, who is this guy? So anyway, I went to this room. It was a kind of a living room, and the curtains were blacked out, and the entrance into the living room had a black curtain on it. And so the whole room was darkened, and it had these big speakers in each corner. And here was this table or bed or looking thing.
I'm going to share a picture here, Bill, of the Trinity Table for the viewers.
Right.
And just so they can kind of get a little bit of a picture of it in their mind's eye.
Right.
The Trinity Table, Bill, you're talking about?
Right. Now, the one that I was on, this is the original one. And the one that I was on was a different one. It's made out of oak, I believe. And the gentleman that made these is moved on to a different realm. And so I didn't have any kind of mattress on it. It was just wood, and it didn't have a pillow or anything. So I laid down on it, and oddly enough, it was very comfortable and very, it was fine. So they closed the curtains, and they started this music, and it was kind of like wah wah noise, and it just was different, and the table would start to turn. Now, my understanding was that it just went in one circle, one speed, one direction. But when I was on it, it went faster, slower, left, right, clockwise, counterclockwise. It didn't go up and down. But anyway, I was going through around these circles, and then around and around and around. And then I was lying there listening to all this stuff, and I'm going, what have I got myself into? This is very strange. I don't understand why this is a big deal. And so then it started going faster and faster and faster. And then I was gone. And unlike my first near-death experience, no one was there to really guide me. It was just this thing. I was there by myself going through this journey, and I left the whole room, everything. And then when I realized where I was in a row, and I had a rope for a belt, and I was wearing sandals, and I was walking along. It was in the desert, and I got the idea that it was in northern Africa, and I don't know where. I don't know really where it was, but it wasn't that important. But then I looked around, and the people were there, and I realized that we were walking with Christ, this whole group of people. And I wondered, and I tried to understand this whole situation, because they thought I'd been there the whole time, but this part of me had not been there the whole time. So that part of me had to get, up to speed with the part that was already there. And so as I was walking along, I kind of asked questions and all this, and I thought he died on the cross. No, that was somebody else. And I go,
yeah, I have a question, Bill. At the time, did you think that this was simply an altered state of consciousness, or did you think that this was an out-of-body experience? In other words, when you were in the room, were you kind of looking back?
I was not in the room. I was gone. That was so far behind me. It was like past tense. But then all of a sudden I was really past tense. I was in a past tense reality. It was not altered reality. It was a reality. It was just like I was there, and I could feel the air. It was dry. I could feel the sand and the dirt, and I could feel the vibrations of the people around me. I knew that this was real. It
Wow.
was very real.
Wow.
And
Well,
so
Bill, if I could
I
just
thought it
pause
was
for a minute. So I'm gonna
sure.
just bring us, so you were trying to work with getting this instrument that wasn't working, and so you were given a free Trinity Table experience that looks similar to the picture that Robert just showed, but
Right, very,
you have
very
the
similar,
pillows.
very similar. Just it
Okay.
looks, that bed looks more comfortable.
Okay. And so then, as I read up about that particular Trinity Table, which is now located in Mount Shasta, and if you Googled the Trinity Table, Mount Shasta, you'll find where you can set up your own experience. But they talk about a hydraulic system that slowly moves you clockwise. I'm just saying but your experience was you were going counter rotational, and then suddenly,
Both.
okay, both.
I went both back and forth, slow and fast.
Okay.
And I was told that it only goes clockwise at the same speed.
Okay,
You know,
but
it doesn't do
you
anything.
experienced it on a whole other level,
Right.
not expecting this to happen. Then
I
you
had
see
no
the
idea.
light.
I mean, when I walked into the room, that was the second thing I heard about it and knew about it. And this was a whole different thing that I had in my mind. I thought it was more like a massage table. That's the only thing I could think of.
But
And I
people
had
are
no
being
idea that
called
it was
in to say, hey, come look at this
right.
and witness your experience. And then suddenly when you say you're out of your body and your clothes have changed, you know, that you
Yes.
realized I'm wearing a
All my
robe
dress.
and sandals and dirt.
And my hands looked different. My feet looked different. Everything was different. I was in a different body. You know, I was not in the same body that I came to this house with.
Okay, but you knew it was you in that other body.
Yeah, I knew it was me, but I didn't know who me was. You know, I was
Okay.
different.
Yeah. It's
You know,
fascinating.
but I knew who me was in my soul. I knew the past me, you know, that came to that house. But this was a different me. And that was my first realization that we could be different like this, that I didn't understand. This just didn't, I was raised Catholic. We were taught, you know, one path, all this, you know, the one person, and that's it. But I didn't understand past lives, future lives, all this stuff. I didn't understand all that. That was just beyond my imagination.
And
You
you
know, I
weren't
had no
knee deep.
concept of it.
You weren't knee deep in woo woo. You had a business
No,
management degree. You're coming from corporate and airlines. You're very, you know, I'm in Texas and this is how things roll.
very conservative state.
Okay. So this sets up. So when you find out you're in a different body and then you see a figure.
Well, I realized that we're walking with Christ and these people that were with Christ.
Now, when you
And
say
then I
Christ,
was
you're talking about
asking,
Jesus of Nazareth.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, Jesus of Nazareth. And I thought, you know, I thought he was, he died on the cross. He was crucified. And though that was somebody else, they said. And so I'm going. And so we walked along and we walked a long way. We stopped, we ate, we slept, and we got up and we kept walking, went to a village, and Christ would go up on top of a building higher up, and he would talk and teach people the teachings of Christ. And it was very moving. It was very humbling. It was overwhelming to this person who had just walked into this living room of this house. And so when I realized that they had a long journey, that they were going to be traveling all over the place, and in different ways of traveling as well. And so I knew all those things from them, from this walking along and talking. And it was more just like everyday life, you know, for them. And I was in this everyday life. So it wasn't like a great miracle happened during this time. It was just part of this journey. So what happened was then my presence, I felt my presence back on this table, and the Trinity table started slowing down and the music started going lower and it stopped. And I was there going, oh my gosh, why did I come back? Every time I go on these different things, you just don't want to come back. It's just, there's not enough time there. And so I got up and I sat at the end of this table, and I cried and I just wept and I wept and I wept. And so I was telling everybody's going, oh my gosh, they said the room lit up. They said that just the whole room lit up, that they're all around this table. There's this bright light and they couldn't look at what was happening. And so I walked away, got in my car and started my car, drove home, and I was just in kind of a lost state of what in the world just happened to me. So then I went, this is much later. There was
Oh, I'm sorry. Before you get there, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to put you back up in your multidimensional experience with Jesus, because when you and I talked earlier, I asked you, so what did Jesus look like?
Oh, he didn't look like pictures that we see. He had dark hair, brown eyes. He was, you know, just looked like another person. You wouldn't think that he was extremely handsome or he just looked like an ordinary person, but he didn't have an ordinary, when you looked into his eyes, it was a different feeling, a different countenance, a different energy that was all around him. That's what was different about him. But his looks, I mean, if you were just to look at him, you'd think nothing of it. And
but would you say he looked very much like Middle Eastern, not like the blue eyes, blondish brown hair?
No, he didn't have blue eyes and blonde hair. No, he was
okay, and dark skin. And
well,
remember,
not dark skin. He had more lighter, like he had a tan skin, but he not really dark.
You said you felt this immense love coming from him. So that's how you really knew it was Jesus.
Well, people told me they would say his name and they'd talk to him and different things. And I just kind of was quiet for a while and I listened. You know, the best way to learn is just to listen. And then if you don't understand something, then ask questions. And so I just listened and kind of picked up on things. And then I thought to myself that it might have been Christ, but I thought, no, this is crazy. I mean, this can't be right. I mean, how can this be Christ? You know, so it just was far beyond what I would ever think of or ever imagine that would happen. It was just far beyond all that.
And wasn't there a moment too, Bill, when you asked, who am I? Was there a moment?
I did. I asked somebody, I asked, who am I? And when I got back, I kept asking, who am I? Because I didn't know.
But you asked Jesus that question too, right? You asked Jesus.
He just smiled at me.
And didn't he say?
I think I don't remember that part exactly, but because I was pretty much still pretty overwhelmed. I mean, I don't remember a lot of. Bewilders is not it. It was just overwhelmed because all of a sudden it's just. I mean, you can imagine being just a guy in Texas and all of a sudden you're walking with Christ. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, it's just nuts, but it was very real and it was very peaceful and it was very loving and very kind. And people flocked to him and heard about him. And they just, you know, when we got to the town, there was somebody that went by and they went, oh my, and they ran to the city and they started telling people. And then it was like a mob scene. You know, he was kind of like the Beatles, you know.
And weren't you mentioning too that like when Jesus spoke to you, was it telepathically? Like it wasn't from the mouth, but more from.
You know, Ursula, I don't remember. I think it was more of I didn't pay attention to that. It just happened. It just was fluid.
So I'm just drilling down a little because I just love this part. This idea of walking with Jesus. You're wearing garbs of that time. And I thought he said to you, you know who you are.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, that's right. He did. It's just when I tell this, it's just each time when I go back, because when I tell it, it's like reliving it again. Mm-hmm. And so I have new feelings that it's like when you read a book for the second time or the third time, you find different things that you didn't see before. Mm-hmm. And I remember we were walking, it was rough. It was very rough. I just remember that this time that it was very rough and we would kind of, it was difficult walking. It was not like it was a smooth path. We were walking, stones were there and rocks. And I don't know how the sandals held up. I don't know how our feet held up, but we were pretty dirty. I mean, we were very dirty because it was just not, it's not like walking down the sidewalk. And so That's what I was feeling this time. And when I was feeling it, it was in my feet. The bottom of my feet were hurting from walking. But we didn't, I was not aware of that at the time when I was there. It just, this time I felt my feet were hurting from walking on these rocks. So each time I tell it, it's like I'm trying to adjust to the new experience and something else that I felt about that experience. So as far as you asking me, did we talk telepathically or anything else? I wasn't concentrating on that this time. It was more of walking and how difficult that was. No matter how difficult it was joyous.
Mm.
We were filled with joy. We didn't realize how difficult it was. We just didn't think of that. And it's just,
It's fairly remarkable how robust your sensory experience was.
oh yeah,
That
it
you
was
were,
very robust.
I mean, feeling the heat, feeling, kind of the sand, and then, you've gone out here and talked about, the rocks and that type of a thing.
Yes. But the feeling from everyone was just pure, pure, unselfish love. It was just joyous. And we didn't want to be anywhere else. And so you can imagine when it was time for me to stop this, how I was upset and how I was sad that I had to go back to me and little old me, I go, oh, well. So I did ask who I was, and I kept wondering over and over, who was I? Who was I? And just didn't know. So I don't remember if it was like how many months passed, but there was this show out called Jesus the Christ. And so there were a bunch of friends that wanted to get together and go see it. So I felt like, oh, this is not going to be what I know. I mean, this is going to be just somebody's made up vision of what they thought it was. But as I watched the movie and everything, I was going, yeah, this is okay. It's all right. It's not exactly right. It's Hollywood, and it's not really exactly what it was like, but the feeling was gone. That's the thing that I didn't feel in the movie, the feeling. And that's the most profound thing I took away from that whole experience was the feeling. And so what happened was someone came up, and then someone had died, and then this lady took this journey to go find Christ to tell him this person had died. And I knew from the movie that it was Mary Magdalene. And so she runs and she finds Christ, and he's doing what he did when I was there, and was teaching the people. And he cries, he starts crying, and he goes, so we said, we must leave. And so they took this journey back, and I think it was around 4 days. It took a while for them to get there. So they got to this tomb of this person that had died, and they rolled back this stone, and Christ put his cloak up over his face because the smell was so bad. And he walked in, and you don't know who this is in the movie. And I'm going, I wonder who this is. And all of a sudden it says, Lazarus, arise. And do you want to show that picture, Ursula?
Oh, I sure do. In case this is just, whoops, excuse me. Well, you keep going, and I'll
Okay.
share.
So anyway, when he said, Lazarus, arise, every cell in my body just kind of was on fire. And I knew that I had been dead, and that I knew that this is, in this movie, this person was Lazarus, arise. And I knew that Lazarus had been dead, and I knew that I was Lazarus. And I'm going, oh my God. And you can see in this picture that he was overwhelmed of what happened. I was overwhelmed, probably more than is portrayed in this picture, because I can remember like, I was dead and I'm here, and now I'm alive again. And so we got up, and they helped me up, and I was a little weak, and Christ hugged me, and then we went on our way, and I followed him to wherever he had been, and we went on teaching again. And I don't know why I was back. I don't know what the movie, why that I didn't go, but it was so profound. And then there's one of the people that Nancy has spoken to, I think it's new. John the Apostle or John, New John. Do you know who that is, Robert? I'm not trying to put you in a position here. It's like the
I
new
don't,
John.
yeah, I'm not that familiar with the story of Lazarus, but
Oh, well, let me help you with that then.
This might help others,
Okay, well, I did a little research. I mean, like you, Bill, I was raised Catholic too, and went through Sunday schools and oh, I gotta just pause for a minute. In your background, didn't you say you also were studying, like you were a Mormon perhaps?
Yes,
So even more remarkable, like were you Mormon after the experience or before the Jesus experience?
before.
So see, this is what's wild, right? Like some people could say, oh, well, that was just probably a subconscious thing with your brain. But here's a good Mormon, Catholic turned Mormon, seeing Jesus. So here's the story
No.
of Lazarus. In Hebrew, his name was really Eleazar, which means God has helped. And I just want to pause there. God has helped, and I'm feeling from your experience that you're sharing, and Robert and I here, it's like, wow, God has helped. So the story is in John 11, and it cites how this miraculous story of Lazarus, that word came to Jesus that his beloved friend had died. And you're right, it took 4 days. So within those 4 days, a lot of Lazarus's family had gathered and they were grieving. And so by the time Jesus makes it, by the way, Lazarus was located in Bethany, which is near Jerusalem, and he was the brother of Martha and Mary. So I didn't know that. I didn't know they were siblings, Martha and Mary. Now
I
there's
didn't either. I didn't
a lot of
remember.
Marys. There's a lot of Marys in the Bible. But in this case, it does seem to point to the Magdalene, which is odd because it was Mary of Magdala, but this is saying it's Mary of Bethany. So I don't know what the story really is, but I'm just sharing with you what Wikipedia
Right.
is
I don't
sharing.
either. I'm just telling you what
So
I've read.
Lazarus, he died of an illness, and Jesus wept and was greatly disturbed. And so, 4 days later, he was raised by Jesus from the dead, completely dead, and emerged from the tomb wearing his burial clothes. And it was witnessed by many Jews who had come. And they speak of his sister Mary, Lazarus's sister Mary, who anointed the feet of Jesus with expensive perfume. And that shows up later in John 12. So we're still talking about Lazarus in John 11. And the fascinating part is this was the last recorded miracle of Jesus Christ before his own passion, crucifixion, and resurrection of 3 days. So I'm always looking at the numbers too. It took 4 days to, bring Lazarus to life. And 3 is a number that shows up as the triad, the Trinity. So I'm going to pause there. And Robbie, what do you think of that story? Do you remember hearing some of that as a kid about Lazarus?
yeah, well, I certainly remember hearing about Lazarus and his being brought back from death. I certainly recall that.
Yeah, I didn't know it was the last miracle. I didn't know about the siblings.
I didn't know it was his last miracle prior to.
I didn't either, not until today.
Yeah, well, think of the timing of it, right? Like,
See, I don't think that was really that last recorded miracle, because I think we kept going on after this.
well,
Because this whole experience happened before I had the Trinity Table experience. This whole experience, this experience, I was walking with Christ, and that's the time that I went back in time to know that I was, what was going on. So he was still alive, and he was still performing miracles. I know that, but I didn't see any miracles going on, but I just knew that he was what he did.
well, your question at the beginning about, weren't you crucified? So it could have been the ascended Christ. You could have been walking with. So I don't know how, like, it's a linear kind of question.
They told me that he didn't really do that, someone else took his place that was going to have to die anyway. And so they said, and they snuck him out. They snuck him out so he could continue. And I don't know what happened. I really don't. This is all totally opposite of what I had been taught, what I believed, what everything that, every fraction of me was thinking, I've lost it, and I didn't really talk about it to anybody because it was, except the people that were in that room, in that living room. And I just kept crying over, and I just couldn't hardly stop. And I don't know why I got in the car and drove home, but I don't remember driving home because it was just, somebody else drove the car home. It wasn't me. It was just, I don't know how I did it.
Now, I'm just going to ask, now, everyone saw who witnessed your Trinity Table experience. They saw the light. Did they hear music, Bill? Do you remember
Well, they
music?
played music.
Oh,
They
they
played
played.
music. They
Oh,
played this music with wow and then the music, and it was nothing like I'd ever heard before. It was different. And since I haven't heard it. And I understand that there is a Trinity Table not far from Dallas somewhere. The man that did this, a friend came in from San Leandro, and she and another lady and I drove up to where the original Trinity Table was and experienced it up there. And again, I didn't have that type of experience. Nothing profound took place at that time. It just brought peace and tranquility. And it was about a 3-hour drive from Dallas to get there because he was off in the country and he had a separate room for this whole thing. It was all set up in there. And so it was because it's large, it takes up a pretty big area of your house. So, and they had people coming all the time to go to do this. He's a very nice man, but he was in bad health. He wasn't doing really well.
so I just love how you're really just sharing the experience. And some may call it a multi-dimensional,
Oh, it
out
was.
of body. You left your body and experienced this, and it did not add up to everything you've been taught, whether it's Catholicism, Christianity, or Mormonism. So for me, it makes me pause and go, wow, there's more than we can imagine,
Right.
But
It's
Robert,
overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
yeah, Robert was sweet enough to open up his personal records. And for those of you being introduced to Robbie, we've done an introduction on the Ascension Playground with Robbie, and his background with opening the Akashic Records and his website, Akashic Attunement. I'm going to hand it over to you, Robbie, to just share a little bit about the records that you opened up around this time of Christ.
Yeah, well, from times prior to this, when I had opened my own records, and I think most people are familiar enough with the records, but what I had known and what I understood is that I was a soldier at the time that Jesus of Nazareth was exercising his ministry around the Sea of Galilee and so on. And I had crossed paths with him on a couple of occasions. But this morning I opened my record just for the purposes of kind of looking into the whole story of Lazarus. And what I recall and what came forward from my record is that the story had been fairly well circulated and was circulating at the time. And it was certainly circulating within the time or within the ranks of the army. And that's how I came to know of it. And so what I did was at the time is I actually went to that place. And this is after the fact. And so Jesus was not there, you were not there. But I simply was provided with this image of the place where you were buried. And so the tomb-like or cave-like structure where you were. And it's not, in readings that I've done with other people, I mean, many people have experienced or had lifetimes at the time of Jesus of Nazareth. And so they may have met him, um, in a more significant kind of a sense. They might have been part of his ministry at the time, or there might even been some other relationship. And so, it's not a surprise to me, that you had this relationship with him.
Well, I felt like I was his best friend, but I think probably everybody did. That may not, that's just the way I felt. I felt like when he looked at me and I looked at him, we were best friends. And that's the way it seemed. Um, but I didn't pay attention to how he looked at everybody else and how everybody was looking at him. I was so wrapped up in me being here in the first place that I just had to concentrate on what I was experiencing with the people that I interacted with. And that's what I felt with him, that he was my best friend. So it was just overwhelming. It was very overwhelming. And I go back when I go through rough times, because like Ursula said, that I've died 5 times, but the first time was really profound. The second time was more of a kind of a brush up course, I guess I could say. And none of them been as profound as the first time. And I don't think there is. After you have a first time experience, it doesn't always get better, or it's not worse, but you just build upon what you've had before. And so that's what I felt like this whole thing was about, was building upon what I had before. And it's just letting me know that once we die, we are don't die. We just go to a different realm, a different place, a different dimension, and we keep going on and on and on. And there's many parts of us that may be living different lives at the same time. And I've heard that from people. I have not experienced that. I don't know if that's true personally, but I've heard that. I'm not doubting that it happens. It's just that, you can live lives in the past and in the present and the future and all this stuff. So it's, our souls are not limited to what we're doing right here, right now. Our souls are just remarkable. They are part of God. They are part of our Creator. So, and we've been told that in a blink of an eye, if God can hear your prayers and all this, and in the blink of an eye, we can be doing something else too, because we are created from Him. So, or her, or whoever that being is. So it's just, to me, we have to not think in very narrow terms. We have to think in much, much broader, much more multidimensional, and I don't know the right word for it, but creation is something that happens within us all the time. And I feel that it goes on and on inside of us all the time. And that's another story I can tell you about when we have time.
Well, we'll have to save that for another time. I
Okay.
gotta say, I'm just listening and feeling the truth and the love that you're radiating. And I love that you allow yourself to retell the story each time, and you're putting yourself in that experience. So it just feels like an emanation and a message that's coming with it, that life does not end with physical death. And if we decide to open our minds up towards using this word multidimensional reality, that beyond this physical lifetime, what is there? It segues to what the good work Robert does with the Akashic record reading and past lives, to help understand and inform this life. What do you think, Robbie?
It's a profound experience, and just opening your records and being in your records is really a profound experience. And it's a quantum energy. And so what happens is aside from the details or images of an event, there's an energy around that. There's actually an emotional energy around that.
Oh, yeah.
So for example, the times that I did cross paths with Jesus of Nazareth in that lifetime, for example, one of the things that I experience is, as you did, kind of the special energy, that he radiated. And
Right.
so,
Everybody there felt it, and he knew it was there. He understood it was there. He did not dwell on it. He just was himself. He just did what he did, and he didn't want to bring any kind of adoration to him. He just wanted to help others. And that was his message. What he taught is if we help others, we will not have conflict. We will not have the problems that we have today. And that interfered with the way the Romans wanted to rule. They wanted to have fear and they wanted to impose this. So he was in direct contrast to what they were doing. And so that's one of the reasons there was so much, they didn't like him, because he was causing problems. These people wouldn't do things that they wanted them to do. And they were, not very enlightened people back then. The Romans were not, and the rulers were not enlightened people. They were just out there to rule.
Well, we don't want to get too heavy on the Roman soldiers, given that Robbie was one. So
Well, but he was still understanding that this person is somebody special. So even they understood it, but they felt like it was a threat.
And reflecting on that lifetime for myself, I have a sense of why I was there at the time.
Oh,
There was a lot going on. And so it was an opportunity for, as you say, in a geopolitical sense, to kind of sort out, was this appropriate in terms of the religious or the spiritual dynamics that were going on at the time? What was happening? Where was the conflict? I had the opportunity to experience that as well. And so what was appropriate, what was not appropriate, and kind of to learn and experience those dynamics that were occurring at the time. And so one of the questions that I had from you, Bill, is that looking back on it, you've had a number of NDEs, and then obviously you've shared this experience that you had. For this lifetime, reflecting on it, what would you say your purpose or your path was in this lifetime?
that's a really good question. I haven't thought of, because I keep asking what it is. I think what happened, I learned from that experience with Christ and from these other times when I did die the first time, is that I get messages and I tell people certain things that changes their lives totally, that they interact with me, and I have the ability to change people's lives and get them on the right path. A friend was studying to be a nuclear physicist, and he became a chiropractor. Another one decided that he was going to go into I think he was trying to go work for his PhD. He ended up becoming a dentist, and he was just thrilled with his occupation. He changed and was just happy. I mean, and I'll talk to people, and what seems to happen is that they reflect on this for just a while, and it just opens up their abilities. Oh, that's what I'm supposed to do in this life. But I haven't figured out what I'm supposed to do, but I can tell everybody else what they're supposed to do. And so, but that's what I'm supposed to do, is just help people get through the tough times in their life and open up. And that was what I was mentioning earlier, that there's another whole experience that I had see, I was told in the first near-death experience that I would come in contact with people and I would be told what I was supposed to tell them at the time. And so that's what I build up on each time. And those times are very exhausting. They're just difficult for me to go through, but I'm energized at the time. But afterwards, I just feel like, whoa, because it brings me back to all these other that I really want to be there instead of here, because this is a very difficult life for me this time. I've had lots of different health challenges. And so it's been very difficult. And I'm not going to kill myself, but I feel like that. I don't know. I just don't think that's the purpose, but it's been rough. And I go, boy, when am I going to get out of this one? It's just, and I've been told that the next life is going to be a very significant one. So I don't know what that means, but I was hoping that I wouldn't have to come back anymore, because this whole thing is just ridiculous.
Wow.
Like I told, Ursula, but we would cry when a baby's born and have joy when someone dies if we knew how wonderful death really was.
I remember you saying it was so much easier to leave the body than it is being asked to return, that every
I've done
hair
both.
on your head would hurt. But
Oh,
looking at our time frame now, I do want to thank you, Bill, for the courage and the sharing of this experience that happened with you, both in this terms of the Trinity Table, which again, if anyone's interested, they can look up the Trinity Table, Mount Shasta, or I think there's other Trinity Tables possibly still in Texas. So, and Robert, thank you for opening up your records to help us understand and look at this idea of the timeline of past lives, current lives, future lives. But I am sure that one thing that's coming out from this share today is that life does not end with death, and that it's choosing love as the highest vibration and gratitude that's going to really
right.
guide and inform us as we go forward. So any final thoughts as we wrap up our time today on the playground?
Well, it occurs to me, Bill, that when you're working with people who are, having these challenging times, that you're able to help them. You're coming from a different perspective. You have an insight. The NDEs and the experience that you told us about today, you understand. You're coming from a different place, and so you can see that the challenges that the people are having are temporal. That your insight gives you a different perspective, and I think that's an energy that you bring forward when you're working with other people. So
Yes, I agree. I'm going to have to talk to you sometime. I really want to do that.
Well, it's beautiful.
well, you
all
have
of
this
that.
you have this really neat you have kind of this really insight or perspective to this greater reality. So,
Correct.
Yeah.
so
Well, we'd love to
It's a
have you
it's
come
a
back.
big blessing. It's a big blessing.
We'd love to have you come back sometime, Bill. So
Okay.
thank
Well,
you.
thank you, Ursula.
You're welcome. We appreciate everyone listening on the Ascension Playground. Hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.